Hey, I want to talk to you today. It sounded like an after school special, didn't I? Are you old enough to remember those after school specials where my God, some of them were so horrible. I can't even believe we survived watching these things. Hey, are you suffering from, okay, anyway, let me start that over. I want to talk to you today. And what I want to talk to you today about is loneliness. And loneliness, if left undealt with, unchecked, unexplored, I guess I should say unexplored, will make you do terrible things to yourself. It'll set you on a trajectory of self-betrayal. I'll explain everything that I mean as I move through this talk with you today. But if you were dealing with loneliness and you have a fear of loneliness, and you recognize that you have that fear of loneliness, and you also recognize that it may potentially prevent you from making really good decisions in your life, then you're in the right place because divine appointment has brought you here to be with me for a time such as this so that we can riff on loneliness together. I can share some of my pain around loneliness and the mistakes that it has created by giving into this idea or notion or feeling. Sorry, I'm hiccuping because I'm eating my fish for lunch. Um, so maybe I shouldn't eat and drive, eat and film. I don't know, but I'm hungry. Okay, I'm in between things today that I'm doing, and I just wanted to come and talk to you. So look about my fish. Mm, s- so good. Loneliness. Let's just define it, like what it is at its core. I've been doing a lot of thinking about this, and loneliness at its core is your soul's cry to be seen. It is your sacred divine wanting to be witnessed. When I was a little girl, I don't think, I can't, if I tried to express to you the level of loneliness that I felt as a little girl, it would be almost near impossible. And actually, without me even, when I think about it, I get really sad that I remember many times as a little girl, um, locking myself in my bedroom and feeling like it would be easier if I would just disappear because I already felt so unseen. I felt like nobody really knew what I was going through. I felt like nobody knew my heart. I felt like nobody knew my potential. I felt like nobody knew my brilliance. I felt like nobody knew what I needed. And all of those things combined is an incredible storm that produces rage, resentment, anxiety, confusion. Loneliness is the root of, I think, all of our self destructive behaviors. And I know that's a big statement to make, but I really do think it is. I want you to picture just feeling like you don't belong anywhere. Just feeling like what I call other people have called this, and I call this the orphan spirit, where it's like you're in a family but you don't even feel like you belong inside of that family, or you're in a family that doesn't value you, see you, appreciate you fully, see that you're suffering, come to help you, come to want to be with you, come to nurture you, care for you. And that creates an orphan spirit. And that orphan spirit is the incredible, incredible feeling of limitless loneliness. And so, in order to fill up that void of loneliness, we reach for things and we start to do things that we wouldn't normally do, like we settle. We get into relationships with people that kind of are willing to be there, but maybe they see us, but I mean, this is a terrible thing to say, but it's the truth. It's like the only people that see you are the ones you don't want. in your relationships. It's like the ones that see you that are beating down your door to be with you and to want to um, have a piece of you or have access to you. You're like, get that fuck away from me. Like, I don't want anything to do with you. That incredible sense of loneliness growing up will create a pattern in you of seeking people who continually can't see you. You will not be attracted to the ones that do see you. There were plenty of men in my life that came along that were freaking awesome, incredible men. Like, I still to this day, I think, man, these men, some of them are geniuses that have started like would have matched the fantasy in my mind, that started huge multi-million dollar empires and are doing big things in the world. And some of these men are just like emotionally just super rich and available, but none of that turned me on. None of that turned me on because these men actually wanted me. These men actually saw me. These men actually wanted to be with me. And as a byproduct of my loneliness, I was only continually attracted to people that really couldn't see me for a while, or only really fired up energetically by the ones that I felt like I needed to steal their attention or get their attention or get them to pick me. For example, for 10 years of my life, I was wildly attracted to this guy who was beautiful and amazing, but totally emotionally unavailable, completely emotionally unavailable to me. In fact, seeing a lot of other women, wanting other women, but I spent 10 years in that dynamic trying to get him to pick me, to see me. It's like, I'm over here, I'm over here. Don't you see my value? Loneliness and that orphan spirit. I need another bite of fish. It's so good, and it's going to get cold. So I need to eat. Mommy's got to eat, feed herself. It's just so good. Do you eat a lot of fish? I know I never really used to be into it. Before I met my husband, who actually sees me, loves me, and I've worked so hard on myself that I'm able actually to let him love me and let him see me, turned me on to sushi. And I used to be like, oh, I'm never going to eat like raw fish. That's disgusting. And then, of course, I love sushi. But now I realize that fish really is my spirit animal, meaning it longs to go inside of my body and reconvene and reconnect to its source energy. Okay, loneliness. There are other times in my life where, because I hadn't healed that loneliness root, the feeling like I don't belong, the orphan spirit, always feeling radically different than everybody else around me, is I would reach for things to fulfill me and fill me up, to take care of that loneliness, to shut up that loneliness. And one of the things I reached for to quell the loneliness, the feeling of orphan spirit, not belonging anywhere, not being wanted, not being seen. Loneliness is also like not being wanted, not being valued, not being desired, all those things. And so I was like, let me fill the hole. So what did I do? I was like, I guess what'll make me seeable and noticeable and less lonely is if I create a construct around achievement or success. And many of us do that. We're like, you know what? I know I'm not going to be so lonely because I'm going to fit in because I'm going to become a Mensa member or I'm going to go be, get a stamp of approval or I'm going to get enough qualifications to say I'm worthy of being seen. I'm going to create massive amounts of success so I won't be lonely and I'll be able to surround myself with whoever I want or go wherever I want or people will want me because I'll be famous or because I'll never be lonely if I expand wow, that's huge, right? So many people, and I think even including me secretly sometimes to quell if I don't check that loneliness thing and I don't keep it in check and I don't keep it in perspective, I too can sometimes succumb to that. Well, pour myself into my community or I'll build this big community and then I won't feel alone. But you know better than I do because you've experienced it that if you don't heal this root of loneliness, you will feel lonely in a room full of people in your own tribe, you can feel lonely. You can find your own tribe and still feel lonely. Isn't that insane? But that's because it's a deeper seated root that no amount of success, no amount of friends, no amount of money. And I know a lot of people who've made it to this certain point in their lives and they're like, they have all the money. I mean, they've made it, man. Private jet made it. Okay. Vacations made it. Anything they want for nothing. They have the beautiful homes, everything, right? I know a lot of people like this. And actually, because they didn't rectify that loneliness root, that orphan spirit, they feel lonelier when they're amongst and around their friends because they really feel like nobody really knows them. And then they feel like nobody really wants them except for what they have. Maybe you can relate to that. Nobody really wants me unless to prevent being lonely, I'm going to secure my value by making enough money or holding the parties or throwing the events or whatever that it is. Or I'm going to surround myself with a bunch of people. And then if you haven't healed that root, you start looking at the people you surround yourself with and you think, Jesus, I'm lonelier than ever. Another way we fill up outside of achievement for our loneliness, if we don't heal that root, is with substances. Many times in an attempt not to feel lonely. When I was traveling, I was a corporate executive for many years. I was like, when a company was hurting, struggling, franchises in particular, and the weight loss industry. Some of you actually, I'm just going to say it because some of you might be like old enough like me to remember this. There was a company called LA Weight Loss back in the day. And LA Weight Loss was this company. You could not escape these damn commercials. They were absolutely everywhere, before and afters. And I got on board at this company many, early on when it was like just growing, just starting out, not really, just like a medium, I guess, start out. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to climb this corporate ladder. I'm going to never be lonely because I'm going to be so recognizable. I'm going to be so noticeable. There used to be a call-in sheet that would come over by fax back in that day, and they'd have everybody's names, like all the positions, director, vice president. And it was like a list of people with where they were at that day, which location. I think there were like 300 locations at that point. Eventually it became 800 locations. And I remember sitting in that cubicle and whiting out the name of the vice president of training and franchise market development. And I would white out her name and I would write my name inside of her name and I would post it up in my cubicle and I would look at it every day. Now, back then, it was like law of attraction, manifesting. Okay. But the truth is, if I look at that, I would say that was a lame attempt to fill the hole of loneliness for me. Because if I have my achievement, people are going to be looking at me. People are going to notice me. People are going to think that I'm valuable. People are going to pay attention to me if I'm in this position of power. Well, it didn't take long because I was a high achiever. I worked my ass off and I got myself into that position. And I became the director of training and market franchise development. And I had really cool experiences. I went all over the world. I went to London. I opened up offices in London. I lived there for 4 months. I experienced really cool experiences. I moved to Chicago. I lived in Dallas. I lived in Vancouver for 2 years. I traveled around and I would walk in and people would know who I was because I was on that call sheet. Right. Now I've made it. And I'd be put up in penthouse apartments and going into turnaround. I worked my way all the way up from that cubicle to being like the person that goes in and builds out the franchises and fixes the shit that's not working. So I would train all of their staff. I mean, this is all very boring, whatever. But all to say that I was in such a position of power, so revered at what I did. You think that would have cured the loneliness thing. I have all this admiration now. I have all these people looking at me. I have all these people saying, "Wow, oh my God, you're so amazing. Look what you're doing." But every night after I would go, you know, be powerful in my position, I would come home at the end of every night and start to drink. And I would drink and drink and drink and drink and drink and drink and drink. And I would think that that drinking would somehow connect me to something. And it would definitely connect me to something. But alcohol is a depressant. So what did it connect me to? It connected me to my pain, connected me to more loneliness. I can't tell you how many sad times I sat with alcohol and stared at myself in front of a mirror and berated myself. I used to do that. Sit in front of my mirror drunk and go, you're a idiot. What the fuck's wrong with you? Isn't that horrifying that I would do that? But I did that because the only connection I knew and felt comfortable with was being berated. I had spent so much of my childhood being berated, being criticized, being told I was wrong, being told I was stupid, not feeling like I belonged, not feeling like I was good enough, that the only time I connected with myself was through berating myself or criticizing myself. That's how I connected to myself. It's disgusting. Or self-betrayal comes in the form of, the one person who's not right for you. They keep consistently breaking your heart on a regular basis. But what we'll do, what I used to do, what loneliness will do, the fear of being lonely or actually being lonely, what it'll do to you is make you call those people, text them, reach out to them, go back to them continually over and over and over again when you know damn well in your absolute heart of hearts that this person is not right for you. They're destructive to you. But the only way you know to connect with people is by picking people who cannot connect because it reinforces the loneliness. Because the story becomes once you grow up this way, once you're a kid that's locked herself in her room and rocked back and forth long enough by herself, crying her eyes out to sleep that she doesn't belong, she's ingrained that position into her nervous system. And I'm going to tell you, it's taken me a lifetime to shake it loose. I'm going to have another bite of fish. It's taken me a lifetime to shake it loose, to not self sabotage. And I've done that too. What'll happen is, hmm, this fish is so good. What'll happen is when you start to belong, when you start to have success, because it doesn't match the loneliness blueprint, the story that I'm an orphan and I don't belong and nobody really gets me and nobody really understands me, it doesn't support that orphan story. So we'll make it support the orphan story. One time I was in Las Vegas after I had done one of my big events where I had, helped this company that was struggling in Vancouver. They were opening up, they were LA Weight Loss franchise, and they opened up 15 centers, 18 centers. I don't know. I can't remember, but I lived there and helped them open those centers and run those centers and turn them around and fix them. And we went to Las Vegas in front of like thousands of people that were all in the corporate world and in this company. And they had won an award for the most amount of money produced in a 6 week, like, I forget what it was called at the time, but like a 6 week thing where you ramp up and you have a big launch. I guess it would have been a launch, of some sort. What I did with them is we organized this huge giant sale. We got all, I mean, I don't want to get into it because it's boring, but we basically made like 1.6 million or something like that in a week, which is unheard of in this company. So it was like, oh my God, you guys are rock stars. And I orchestrated that whole thing. I was the brains behind that operation, including with some other top people that assisted and helped. But basically, it was me driving and motivating the people, encouraging them, being on and having like, you know, boots on the ground, so to speak, walking into the centers, encouraging them, uplifting them, inspiring them. I poured my heart and energy and soul into this. And I deserve the accolades because of the amount of emotional and physical and mental um, currency that I exchanged. So I deserve the accolades. Anyway, we won the award. We won the award, and everybody went on stage. And because I had an orphan spirit that was unrectified and unhealed, I waited for an invitation to get up on stage with everybody else. And they weren't thinking about me. They weren't thinking about me. They were thinking about how happy they were. They won an award. So about 25, 30 people that we had brought to Las Vegas, or the guy who ran it, who I love so much and is still I just have such a heart for him. And he got me. He knew I was a fucking hot mess and he still loved me anyway. Thank you. You know who you are if you ever watch this. Um, but basically, everybody got up and I didn't get an invitation. And then I sat in a chair and I sulked and I pitied myself. And I thought, see, really wants me. Nobody really knows I belong up there. Nobody's inviting me up there because they don't really want me up there. It's really them. And I'll just sit back here. And the whole 30 people got up from where I was sitting and went up to that stage. And do you know what? I was there sitting by myself in an empty space of 30 people. And I think eventually, one of my good girlfriends, who was also like the president of operations, looked at me and she was like, come on. And I was like, no, 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 no. Because even when people do invite you, when you have an orphan spirit or a loneliness root that needs healed, when you're invited, you'll decline. You won't even go. there'll be something in you that will hold you back from fully participating in life, fully engaging, fully giving yourself over. And I sat there. And then later that night, because I had made that move, because I had triggered my orphan, because I had really just hurt myself by not going up there and accepting the praise and acceptance and love that I deserved, okay, from being, doing what I did later that night. I went out with my friends to Dow, which was a club in Las Vegas, and I drank so much alcohol that I don't even it's bits and pieces. When I tell you it's bits and pieces, I mean it's bits and pieces. I literally got so drunk that I was found by a crew. I'm an ambulance crew in the hallway, trying to pull a fire alarm. I mean, listen, just think about this for a minute. I was so desperate to get out of this pattern, to get out of this spell I was under of feeling like I didn't belong, that I wanted to pull a fire alarm in the hottest nightclub in all of Las Vegas and make the whole entire place exit because I was so fucked off at my own hands. By the way, I did it, right? I could have walked on the stage, but an orphan spirit won't let you. An orphan spirit won't let you take the spotlight. It won't let you. Or if you do take the spotlight, you never really feel like you fully earn it or deserve it or belong there. That's what that loneliness does. I mean, it's so crazy. Anyway, I ended up in the hospital that night. I ended up staying overnight in the hospital that night. And the next day, I went back in and I told them I had an allergic reaction with some kind of fucking fish or whatever that I didn't eat back then at that time. Speaking of, take another bite of my fish. I ended up in the hospital. I could have been on the stage celebrating with my peers, basking in the glory, but instead, I blew it the fuck up. I blew it up because I didn't know how to let myself be accepted, be seen, be witnessed. So that leads me to what can you do? If you recognize yourself in any of this and you're thinking, Heidi, thank you so much for sharing your stories there. That was intense. I trust me, I lived it. It was very intense. Thanks for noticing. Um, but I can just tell you for me, what I've had to do to get out of that loneliness thing. Some of it was mental. I spent a lot of time mentally working. Three planes. One was mental. There's mental, emotional, or sorry, mental, the mind, the body, the spirit. Easiest way to say that. So for the mind, I was like, I need to get my shit together. I was already in personal development, but I was like, I need to really like double down. So I started seeking other types of personal development, right? Like deeper teaching, deeper knowledge of like self-esteem, growing up in trauma. I started really pouring instead of like generic self-help, I moved into like trauma self-help by, people that really kind of understood the what I'd been through and how to minister to that or talk to that. And that got me pretty far. That got me to unleash my business. That got me to start wanting to help other people. That got me to probably, be willing to just kind of put myself out there. It got me a lot. It actually mentally, the mental work is so important that it actually helped me to find my husband. It actually helped me to have eyes to see my husband, uh, who had been there for a long time as a friend, but I didn't have eyes to see him because the story I told myself was I wasn't attracted to him because he was a friend and he was in a different category, and I really only liked the men that like jazzed me up and trauma bonded me basically. But anyway, I that mental work, the mind work helped me find my husband, and then together, and I actually that was very strategic on my part with like exactly what do I want, exactly what type of relationship I want, how am I holding myself back, let me clear all the blocks. And I did that, and I met and married my husband. But then the second plane was the body plane. And when you have a lot of trauma and you can picture that little kid locked behind her bedroom door, crying her eyes out, about not feeling like she belongs, that lives in the body for a long time. So even though mentally I felt free, I was still a prisoner in my own body. And I didn't realize how big of a prisoner I was until I knew because I had fibromyalgia. That's a pretty good indicator. A lot of abuse survivors, trauma survivors have fibromyalgia. So that was a good indicator like trauma still lived in my body. But the other thing that, I just wanted to say one more thing before I forget. part of this process was my first decision with the mind was quitting alcohol. And that was after I met my husband, about a year in, when I started to really practice love and letting love in and being more vulnerable, which was hard for me because I was like Alcatraz. That's why I made a really good boss. I made a really good business development person. It wasn't personal, it was business. Even though I led personally, still at the end of the day, it was all about making that money, honey, you know. So anyway, I gave up alcohol. And then once I did that, I recognized because I wasn't medicating my body. And when you use alcohol, you don't realize how much trauma you have in your body because you're drunk and your body's relaxed all the time. Same thing if you're a pot smoker, if you use weed, if you use Ativan, if you use anything else that also alters your mind, it also alters your body. So left with like a naked body, a vulnerable body with no substance in it, I started to realize, holy shit, I'm hurting. Right. And then I wanted to get pregnant. And I realized that no amount of mental stimulation was going to help release the demons that were deep within that lived and resided from the sexual trauma that I experienced in my ovaries and in my uterus and in my vagina. And I know I'm saying all these words, and that's fine. It's just me and you. Hopefully, if you have a little one there, not too little headphones. So anyway, I went to healers. I started down the Reiki path, and so much so that I wanted to become a Reiki person and got certified in that because, you know, I got to still thought I still needed to be knighted to be able to like priestess or do the things I want to do in the world or heal or do whatever. And so I did. But anyway, Reiki really helped me. There was one person in particular, a massage therapist who doesn't tout herself as this healer, but she is. And her name is Hansa, and she was absolutely amazing. And I remember having a session with her, and she was working on me and my sacral chakra, and I was weeping on the table face down, just shaking and weeping and letting it go. And the next 2 weeks, I was pregnant. Then that whole process of figuring out um, how to give birth, because I wanted to give birth naturally. I didn't want to use any medication. I wanted to learn how to trust my body from a person who had been so not trusting of my body, had so much abuse of my body at my own hands and others. I I practiced being safe in my body. And so I gave birth naturally and had our daughter. And then other things came up. And, you know, trauma is like that. It's not linear. It's not like, oh, you're going to heal your trauma, your loneliness root, you're going to deal all that. It's like it represents itself. And so when I had my daughter, all my trauma resurfaced at the age that I was when I experienced it, when she turned the age that she was. And when she turned two, I had 2 year old stuff that came up. When she turned three, I had 3 year old stuff that came up. And that's the way that it is. And it's for us. It's not like, why me? Why is this shit coming up again? Thought I healed this already. And I know you probably think that sometimes too, because you're an achiever too, you're a go-getter. But the truth is that it's not a bad thing that it keeps coming up. You're meant to up level, you're meant to enlighten, you're meant to keep growing and keep learning. And so there was an opportunity there for me to keep working. And anyway, on the body front, one of the most healing things that I did, one of probably the most healing modality that I've ever done in my life for trauma is therapeutic dance, ecstatic dance, embodiment dance, where you're like tribal journey dance, 5 rhythms. Check them all out because I remember the first time I walked into my to do one of these dance classes, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" I was like, these are a bunch of fucking weirdos. I don't belong here. They're going to be looking at me. First of all, nobody was looking. Nobody cared. They're all looking at each other's eyes. Like, don't look at me, bro. Like, I'm going to dance. I sound like my 10-year-old. I'm going to dance. I don't make eye contact with me. It's creepy, right? Like, was so locked down that I didn't even want somebody to make eye contact with me. Even though I had done all this other work, I still had all the residual impact of this loneliness root. So I danced, I shook it loose. And then the last thing was the spiritual realm. And that's really where, oh my God, all the magic happens. All the magic happens in the spiritual realm. And that is an individual journey, isn't it? I mean, even if I told you what worked for me, you would be like, what the, I mean, it would probably like blow your mind. But I was so willing to be free. And so then I started doing work with shamans and started experimenting in the shaman world. I started rectifying my relationship with the patriarchal Christian version of the things that I used to believe in and dismantling that and reclaiming the sacred the feminine face of Christ and lots of different things. And even when I'm saying this, you see, there's no place in me that cares about not belonging when I say this. You see, if you still have this loneliness root, this orphan spirit where you feel like you don't belong, you won't tell people the weird stuff. You won't tell them the things about you that make you you. You won't share that level of vulnerability about you. And then what will happen as a result? My beloved love, my precious love, and I'm speaking to myself whenever I say this, if we don't continue to work at belonging, we'll never share what we need to share. And then the rub is nobody will ever know you and you'll feel lonely forever. The only way to stop feeling lonely is to radically claim that you belong to you. You belong to you. You don't belong really to anybody else anyway. So stop trying to belong somewhere you don't belong. That's the trick. Loneliness is an issue of belonging. And the fact is, none of us really belong to anything or anyone outside of ourselves. So if you heal that relationship first, I belong to me. Oh, it's my sister. Hi, honey. I'm just finishing up filming my video and then I'm going to come on for our podcast. I'm going to wrap it up right now. I'm just on the, I'm filming. No, no, it's it, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. I was just in the riff and I know I got to be there, but I'll be right there in 2 minutes. Okay. Love you. All right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The link will last. Okay. I love you. Okay. Bye. All right, guys. All right, my love. So that's it. That's it for today. I think that's enough just to think about and wonder what journal prompts for you is how do I let loneliness drive my life? What do I do when I feel lonely? How do I react? What self destructive behaviors do I engage in? You can make a page for mind, body, spirit. If I were going to go on a journey and start to heal some of these things, what are the things in my mind that need healed? What am I believing about myself that I could work on by dismantling these limiting beliefs, these destructive beliefs in my body? What modalities can I start engaging in? What weird things can I seek out to mend that loneliness within myself? And then spiritually, how can I find myself within myself and know that I belong always? Always. When you rectify the mind, body, spirit belonging, and you rectify the orphan, and you figure out you belong to you and the God that lives within you, everything else is easy. I want that for you. Take excellent care, and I'll see you really soon. By the way, if you want more support and help, you know where to find me. The links are all over here if you want to go deeper. All right. I love you.